What's going on, everybody? C4 here today, talking a little bit Madden 18. I don't want to go super hard with the Madden 18 videos because I don't actually have Madden 18 to play with yet. But I have been seeing plenty of articles, plenty of videos going around talking about the top 5 teams that you could play to rebuild in Madden 18. Now, I've yet to see one list that is identical to what I want and what I think should be the top 5 rebuild teams in Madden 18. And from, I'm going to say, let's say the premier rebuild specialist on YouTube, we're better to get the information from than me. I'm not going to make this a super long video because I know you guys got shit to do. It's the fucking, I don't even know when this is coming out, maybe the weekend or not. But without further ado, the top 5 teams to use for a rebuild in Madden 18. Now, before we jump right into the teams to rebuild, what do you define by a rebuild? Now, this is not necessarily to do the format, which I do, which is, in 5 seasons, you try to win the Super Bowl, and you try to, use all real prospects, try to build it this way. This is more so, you can do that, but it's also for people that want to take the long haul. They want the one franchise to start when Madden 18 comes out and just ride that one connected franchise mode. If you have that much commitment all the way to Madden 19, maybe by Madden 19 they'll actually give a shit about connected franchise mode and add some good features. This is more for those guys, but again, if you want to try to do, the YouTube style rebuilds, they would do just fine. So without further ado, number 5, finally, I'm starting out with the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's not a team in any other Madden they're always going to show up on the list because they have the pieces there, but they're perennial just failures. And there's 2 things that you can get here with the Jaguars. And the first thing first is you have a nice young roster with some veteran key pieces. Looking at it, you got Blake Bortles, you can have the redemption season with him. Now you have Leonard Fournette, who's going to be one of the most fun players to use in Madden 18. Incredibly overpowered. On the wide receiver spot, you got talent. You got AR-15 Allen Robinson, you got Marquise Lee, you got Allen Hurns, and then you have guys you could certainly develop if you want to move on from either one of these guys. I know Allen Hurns has a fat contract. You got Rashawn Green, who's a very good slot wide receiver, and you got D.D. Westbrook, who I imagine will be one of the fastest wide receivers in the game, as we have him here with 93 speed and 94 acceleration, 6 feet tall. It's going to be about that Madden cheese. Tight ends. Tight ends is definitely a work in progress. Offensive line, they're coming up. You obviously have Brandon Linder, who is a center, but with that size, you can move him all over the line. You have Cam Robinson, who can play at any one of the tackle spots, but you still need to work on the offensive line. You don't want to complete a project. You certainly want to be able to make your own impact and stamp on the roster, and certainly we're already seeing tight end, offensive line. The defensive front, you got Dante Fowler, who's young with plenty of potential. Calais Campbell, who they just brought in, he might be a defensive tackle, but if you're going for youth, Yannick Ngakoue and Dante Fowler are 2 tremendously upside edge rushers to use in Madden. And then you obviously have Calais Campbell, and you have a combination of Malik Jackson. You got Abry Jones, who's good against the run, as your defensive front, so you're good there. You got Paul Posluszny, an old veteran at linebacker, so you could move on from him. There's plenty of youth here with Miles Jack and Telvin Smith, 2 really good, underrated young linebackers using Madden. You have AJ Boye, you don't have to worry about him in real life being a bust because you can just use him in Madden and he'll be just as good as, if you want to. He's as good as you want him to be. But more importantly than AJ Boye, he's 25 still, you got Jalen Ramsey, a guy that you can be however you want. Do you want to play safety? He's going to be a lights-out safety. Do you want to develop into the next lockdown corner? He can do that as well. You also have decent safeties here, Deshaun Gibson and Barry Church. So overall, I think the Jags are an entertaining team to use because of the options on the roster with still having the ability to really leave your stamp on it with tight ends, offensive line, and really, we could pretty much build up the linebacking core, maybe? I don't even know. But there's plenty of ways to do it, and Jags are a perennial rebuild team that I'm not seeing on too many people's lists. And the other feature that makes the Jags very attractive is because plenty of people like to relocate a franchise. And if there's a franchise that's, most susceptible to being relocated, in my opinion, it's going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's been, subject of discussion for quite some time. Are they going to be the first team to move to London? Or, then you can get, there's other relocate, like the Bills to Toronto or the Raiders to Mexico, stuff like that. But the Jags are the one team because there's so many goddamn teams in Florida, you can just relocate them. So that gives them some added bonus over the other franchises that we're going to talk about. Speaking of relocation, we're going to be talking about team number 4, and that is going to be the LA Chargers. Now that they're in LA, you can make your own stamp on them because they also have the team like the Jags, that you can relocate, no one really question it. It kind of keeps it realistic, because who the fuck wants to stay at a 20,000 seat stadium like they're going to be playing at StubHub? So, you know, not only do they have, I think, a little bit better of a roster than the Jags, which puts them, I mean, either way you're looking at it, you could switch them between 4-5 and 5-4. Just in terms of, I mean, they haven't really won a lot. I mean, when they were really, really good last, Lady and Tomlinson seemed to get hurt every playoffs. But again, you have the added of a team you can relocate. The top 3 teams probably aren't going to be prime candidates for a relocation type approach to a connected franchise build. We all know the originals here in San Diego. You got Phillip Rivers, old veteran quarterback that you could try to use during your early stages of a rebuild, and then you could actually try to get your stamp on getting a quarterback. He's 34. He's going to be turning 35. You might get 2 or 3 seasons out of him if you're lucky, if you get the retirement dev trait for your coach. But, you know, you are going to be looking at bringing in a quarterback. And that's one of the most exciting things to do in a franchise is bring in your own special quarterback. Run the ball. You got a young potential all-pro running back here in Melvin Gordon. You got a wide receiver spot, Keenan Allen, who's a beast. You don't have to worry about getting hurt, really. If you're a Chargers fan, just turn injuries off, bud. Go easy on yourself and turn injuries off. You got Keenan Allen and you have Tyrell Williams, both these guys 24 years age. And then you also got the first-round draft pick, Mike Williams from Clemson. So looking forward, these 3 guys, that's your staple. If you can hold on to them, you can work the salary cap magic. You can have 3 franchise wide receivers going forward. You also have Inman and Benjamin as well to throw into the mix. The tight end spot you can use kind of in the mold of Phillip Rivers. Get a couple seasons, maybe if you're lucky, out of Antonio Gates. But don't worry, waiting in the wings, you have one of the best young tight ends in football here in Hunter Henry. It's doing it for you in case you're not the best drafter. Offensive line, this is where you're going to be able to put your stamp on. Not a great O-line at all, but you got 2 young, tremendous guys. We have Forrest Lamp, who we think will probably get around a 76 rating in Madden 18. And then you have Dan Feeney, who gets a 74. In my opinion, they were the top 2 interior offensive linemen in this year's draft class. I mean, no one wants to really draft and spend all their picks on offensive linemen. So the fact that you already have 2 starting, and they'll probably 2 starting guys for the future that are probably at the 2 least attractive spots on the offensive line, it's a good starting point. Looking at the defensive side, if the sim and anything like that is similar from Madden 17 to Madden 18, Joey Bosa was the most overpowered player in the sim. He was unblockable. So you have the defensive rookie of the year, the reigning defensive rookie of the year going into his sophomore season. He's going to be an absolute animal. You got Melvin Ingram now. This team switching from a 3-4 to a 4-3. That edge rush is going to be nasty. You probably want to maybe lay your own influence on the defensive tackle spot, but then again, you now have Corey Liuget, or Legit. I always, in Canada, that's how you pronounce it. It would be Liuget in Canada. He's 26, so I mean, there still is some youth there for him to develop, but you can definitely add your own stamp here. Linebacking core is young and good. You got Kyle Emanuel. Most notably, you're going to have Denzel Perryman as a middle linebacker and Jatavis Brown, who had an excellent season as a rookie as a right outside linebacker. I think 84 might be a little too generous of a base rating, but these linebacking core is young, and also, if you want to go in a different direction, there's no one really established or really eating up a lot of your salary cap, so you have lots of flexibility here. In the secondary, you have Casey Hayward, who had 7 goddamn interceptions last year, so you have your playmaker there. You have Verrett, another good young corner, with still room to actually draft and find your starting nickel, if you really want it. Safeties, again, kind of a work in progress. They did get Trey Boston from the Cardinals, no. Boston came from the Panthers, 24 years age. And then strong safety, like I said, the safeties, you could probably work with that. But overall, I think in terms of rebuild teams that you shouldn't feel bad about wanting to relocate, I think having the Jags at 5 and now the Chargers at 4, both those teams are going to be the prime candidates for a relocation style rebuild. Now getting to the originals, the regulars, we're going at number 3, the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, this is straight up. This is going to be a popular pick. You're going to see this a lot if you're doing, trying to do research on what teams are going to be good to use for a rebuild style format in Madden 18. I mean, there's plenty. You got to get a quarterback. There's no one there that's going to be a franchise quarterback. You have Carlos Hyde as the running back spot. I mean, Joe Williams might be fun to use. He's going to be quick. Carlos Hyde is one of those guys, he's necessarily going to have much of a developmental trait. Has he peaked? I don't necessarily know. But if you really are going to want to do this, you probably want to hold on to him because he's one of the limited explosive playmakers on your offense. But still, you're not really, he's not established enough that you're kind of hampered down if you want to try to keep it realistic. Because Carlos Hyde was a guy, during this year's draft, there was rumors, we'll just say rumors because I don't really know how much weight was behind it. Like, oh, they're going to get Leonard Fournette and move on from Carlos Hyde. So you wouldn't feel bad about getting rid of Carlos Hyde. You have the best fullback in football. Who doesn't want that when they're starting with their franchise? An expensive fullback. Wide receivers, you can lay your own mark. There's really nothing here, really. You got Pierre Garçon. He's solid, but he's also 30, so he's definitely not going to be in your long-term goals, but he'll be serviceable while you're starting out, and everyone else is kind of meh. But definitely look for Trent Taylor. I think he's got some solid stats, and he could be a sleeper candidate for one of the best rookies to use as a starting slot wide receiver. And you also got how can we forget? Marquise Goodwin with the 95 speed. He's going to be a burner for some streaks. Tight end, again, you could probably lay your own kind of influence here as well. Pretty much every position you're going to have to establish and really build and grow as a GM by drafting and free agency. But at tight end, I mean, Vance McDonald's not bad. You got George Kittle, the rookie from Iowa, who's going to be fun to use. In terms of offensive line, Joe Staley's not bad. Zuta at center coming over from the Ravens, he's serviceable. And then, you know, Trent Brown is usually a right tackle, not only just because he's Gator made from Florida, but he probably will have a quick developmental trait. Plenty of upside here for Trent Brown, who's probably has the most upside of anyone on this offensive line. But again, another unit that you're going to really have to try to build and establish yourself, and that's kind of the point of doing a rebuild if you're getting out of, obviously, the Chargers and the Jaguars. Defensive side, you have Solomon Thomas, who's going to be an absolute beast in this year's game, going to be very well-rounded. We have Aaron Lynch making the move from outside linebacker to defensive end. He's going to be a great user at end, I believe, in this year's game. You also have Eric Armstead, who probably, if you want to, just make him a defensive tackle with DeForest Buckner. The 2 first-round picks from 2014 and 2015, I believe. Well, no, it'll be 2015, 2016. You know, young. Your line is going to be young, and your line is going to be the one thing you don't have to improve upon. The front four here for the 49ers as they make the switch from a 3-4 to a 4-3 is going to be youthful with plenty of upside. Looking at the linebacking core, again, it's definitely somewhere that you're going to want to improve, but you have the highlight of having the old man Navarro Bowman, and then you're going to have the young guy that's going to be very fun to use in Reuben Foster. You're probably going to have Malcolm Smith. You can move into the left side linebacker if you will. The linebacking core is not going to be bad, but you definitely have an exciting playmaker in Reuben Foster who could be the staple of this defense when Navarro Bowman's time has come. Jumping in the secondary, you got Rashard Robinson, a young corner with probably quick dev trait. Looked really promising last season. But outside of that, you totally have room to put your own influence back here in this secondary. Really everywhere. I mean, the safeties you really want. Jimmy Ward has some upside and Eric Reed. So more so you can focus on the secondary. But again, still a lot of work that needs to be done in every area for the 49ers. So if you're looking for a team that you just, you can literally, if you look at this roster, let's be honest. Let's look at this roster top to bottom. Bowman and Garçon, they're definitely guys you want, but they're getting up there in age, so they're definitely not going to be in your long-term plans. Guys that are going to be long-term, maybe Carlos Hyde, Jimmy Ward, and then you got the line of Solomon Thomas, Buckner, Eric Armstead, Aaron Lynch, and probably... You basically have the line and the safeties. Those are the two positions that you're going to hold on your players with debatably Carlos Hyde. The rest is up to you, so if you really want to bite off a lot here in a rebuild, the 49ers are definitely going to be a good team. Moving to number 2, it's going to be the Cleveland Browns. I was going to put the Browns at number 1, but I feel like a lot of people have Browns at number 1, so I'm going to make the debate and the case that they not the number 1 team may be another franchise. But we're going with the Browns, and I think the reason why the Browns are number 2, or could be viewed as number 2, is because it's a little easy, if you will. Looking at the roster, obviously the quarterback spot's wide open. Kessler's here. Kaiser will be probably fun to use in Madden and try to build around, but there's no strings attached here at quarterback. You can draft and get your own guy there. Running back, you're probably set. I think really if you don't want to have to completely rebuild, Crowell and Duke Johnson as a 1-2 punch will get the job done. 23 and 22 years old respectively. Plenty of tread left on the tires here. At the wide receiver spot, you got Corey Coleman who's fun. You can always hold on to Josh Gordon who's just fun to use playing out. And everyone else, I mean, you definitely have to put your stamp on there. But you got 2 wide receivers, is not bad. And Kenny Britt is serviceable until you can draft your own guy. Tight end, you got a young guy that's going to be very overpowered in David Njoku in terms of speed and athleticism. Just develop his awareness. He's going to be good for you. Look at the offensive line. Really good offensive line. And this comes down to a lot of people, when you take a rebuild, you don't want to try to oh, yeah, I can't wait to spend 3 years building up my line. The line here in Cleveland is good. So unlike the 49ers, we have to probably have to invest some exciting picks, if you will, on the offensive line. You wouldn't have to do it to the Browns because they have Joe Thomas, Joe Bitonio, J.C. Treader, Kevin Zeitler, and really you just might have to work out a right tackle. But even if you wanted to, you could probably move John Greco to right tackle, and he can service it there. So everyone on the line's at least over an 80 overall, and you can pound the rock as you try to build your quarterback up and your wide receiver stable. On the defensive side of the ball, young and good. Ogba, phenomenal in the sim as a defensive end. Pair that with the first overall pick, Myles Garrett, who's going to be a beast to use as a user. Oh, I can't wait to even play with him. He's going to be fun to use. Your line is looking good. You got Danny Shelton, who's young as well. You got Caleb Brantley, who's an absolute steal in the draft. this line here is going to be very good in Cleveland. Maybe not as good, I would say, as the 49ers in terms of well-roundedness, but still very damn close for young prospects on the front four. Left of side linebacker, J.B. Collins, he's a beast. You don't have to worry about that. Kirksey is a tackle machine. Don't have to worry about that. And then you can add it, maybe a guy here at right outside linebacker. But here's where you get into kind of rebuild mode. The secondary is up in the air. McCourty, I mean, he's probably over the hill. Jamar Taylor had a good season. Joe Hayden's not bad. Obviously, Gator made. But big cap hit you may want to look on from there. I think when you look at the Browns, though, the secondary is where you're going to want to try to lay your stamp on most importantly. We have Ed Reynolds at safety. Ugh. You got Jabril Peppers, who will be fun to use. You can probably move him all over the field, be it a safety. Maybe try to just get crazy and have him your right outside linebacker or something stupid like that. But, I mean, the roster, top to bottom, still plenty of things to upgrade, but you don't really have to worry about the offensive line. But the reason why they're number 2 and not number 1, I mean, the Browns are always the number 1. I'm probably, my first episode of Realistic Rebuilds in Madden 18 will be the Browns, because that's the clicks. The clicks that get the dicks. But the Browns have crazy amount of draft picks. They got like 2 first-rounders, 9 second-rounders next year. They are set for the next 2 upcoming drafts with draft picks, so it's very easy to get who you want if you can draft well and scout well to really build this team out quickly, as well as not having to sink a lot into the offensive line. So that is why I think they're number 2, only because the draft picks makes it a little bit easier. Or if that's what you're looking for, go for the Browns. But the number 1 team to rebuild in Madden 18 is going to be the worst roster I think has ever... Look, actually, look at this. He's not even on the team anymore. The worst roster that I may have ever seen in a Madden game, at least in recent memory, and that is going to be the Jets. For those of you guys that are just, you know, gluttons for punishment, and you want just a frustrating experience, and then when you finally get it, the payoff is going to feel phenomenal. The Jets are going to be the number 1 team to look at rebuilding. I haven't seen them on anyone's list, which is ridiculous, because they are going to be terrible next year. Nothing at quarterback. You got decent running backs. I mean, Forte's 30, so he's not going to be in long-term plans. I think Powell is solid, but he's also 27. No spring chicken. Running backs usually start to decline around 28, 29. So, I mean, right now, no quarterbacks. No great future at the running back spot. Looking at wide receiver, you got a Nunwa. Yeah, I guess. You got Anderson, who's overpowered. But outside of that, I mean, Katie Cannon, practice squad, Chan Hansen, and Darius Stewart. I mean, there are some good guys you could start out. You're not going to be completely thrown to the wolves, and there are some prospects at the wide receiver position that you could try to develop. But for the most part here, again, 3 for 3 for major positions that you could continue to build upon. Tight end, probably one of the worst tight end stables in football. Austin Sfair-Jenkins, Jordan Leggett from Clemson. I think both these guys have some upside to it, but not a whole lot. Offensive line, you got Brandon Shell's a rookie who wasn't bad. You could probably roll with him as your left tackle. Carpenter at left guard is not terrible, but the rest of the line, ugh. Center's bad, right guard's serviceable, right tackle's not great. Again, gluttons for punishment. You're getting everything. Like, this roster's worse than the Niners. That's very surprising. Very hard to say, but it's not really that hard because they're trying to blow up. It really comes across like the Jets are trying to suck for the first overall pick, and that's probably what will happen if you take over this roster. You're going to get at least the number 1 overall pick after the end of the 2018 season. Defensively, they're not bad. Wilkerson did not play well last year, so I imagine he's going to have a pretty low starting overall. You got Sheldon Richardson, who's, yeah, you know. Leonard Williams is probably the best player on this roster, and you do have that. If you want to roll with this, your front 3 of the 3-4 defense are not bad. And there's definitely, you know, potential to get these guys back up, especially Richardson and Muhammad Wilkerson. If you have decent sliders on, you can probably get these guys back up into the high 80s. And then get a guy like Leonard Williams who's going to be a bona fide 90 overall player next year's game. So at least that's done there. You don't have to, you know, completely overhaul every position. The linebackers aren't terrible. Jordan Jenkins certainly is young enough with some upside. David Harris is no longer actually on the roster. Can I even get rid of him? Do we need 3? He's gone. So you have Darren Lee. You have a young guy you can work with. Right outside linebacker. Get a like, overall, there's some talent here at linebacker. But again, another position you could completely try to overwork. Secondary, go for it. Again, I mean, ugh. Claiborne, big signing, but not really that great. Probably won't have a good developmental trait. We'll leave it at that. So secondary, you have to go all in on that. The safeties will be fine. Rolling with Marcus May and Jamal Adams. Those are going to be 2 good playmakers. Obviously, Pryor's no longer on the roster. I think he's on Cleveland. But yeah, this team here, I'm going to say safeties and defensive line, kind of in the mold of the 49ers. Those are the 2 positions that you probably could rest easy with the Niners. But at least the Niners have some serviceable players elsewhere, where the Jets, man, it's going to be a challenge. And if you're in for the challenge like I will, I'm probably going to have to do something with the Jets to see how I can save this roster. That's going to be the big challenge. Who can win the Super Bowl with the Jets first? I'm going to try it. You guys should try it. That's why they're my #1 team for a rebuild in Madden 18. Let me know what you guys think about this list in the comment section below. If this is your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, C4 saying Madden 18 hype. I mean, they're not really hyping up connected franchise mode, but I'm still ready. I'm going to do my best to try to make it entertaining for you guys. Saying peace out.